on rational numbers on the number line. Okay, and hopefully you guys remember or know that a rational number is any number that is represented as a fraction. So for example, 0.5 is 5/10, which would be 5 over 10, so that's a fraction. Okay, so let's get these on the number line. You're going to want a ruler with centimeter markings on it. And I'm going to draw a nice long number line here. Throw arrows on the end to show that it keeps going forever in both directions. Okay, now we need to look at our number. That didn't really draw in very well. Let me fix that up. There we go. Okay, now we're going to want to look at our numbers and figure out what whole numbers or integers, more accurately, we should have at each end of this. So our least number is negative 0.77, and our greatest number is 1.7. So we should be going between -1 and +2. Okay, so I'm going to put -1 here on the far left. And now, because we're dealing in decimals, 5 over 10 is 5/10. So I'm going to want 10 spaces between -1 and 0, 10 spaces between 0 and 1. So the best way to do that and make it fit on the page is make a mark every half centimeter. And if you start at 0 millimeters, you'll know you're at 10 spaces when you get to 5 centimeters. Okay, so that's going to be -1, that's going to be 0. Going to do the same thing again. You guys will probably have to pause the video to get this done. Okay, perfect. So there's my number line done. And now 0.5 is 5/10. So there's 1/10, 2, 3, 4, 5/10 right there. So I'm going to put in a line there and go 0.5. Make sure you guys put the line in to show where it is and not just write the number above, because some of these are going to be not exactly obvious where they are. Okay, next one, 1.2. So that's 1 and 2/10. So that's going to be there. And again, I'm going to go pretty quick, so you guys might want to pause this and rewind and stuff. -0.3, -0.1, -0.2, -0.3 is here. Okay, 1.7, 1.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is right there. Okay, 0.85. So there's 0.8. There's 0.9. So 0.85 is going to be halfway between them, because we need to imagine that we'd break this up into 10 spaces between there and there to get hundredths, and it'd be 5/100ths. So it'd be right there, 0.85. -0.77. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's -0.7. And then we'd have 7 of the 10 little spaces between -0.7 and -0.8. So it'd be there, -0.7. And now -0.3 with the line over it. You guys remember that means -0.3 repeat. So it's going to be -0.3333 forever. So it's going to be -3/10, and then -3/100ths, and then -3/1000ths. So from the -0.3 here, it's going to be 3 of the 10, and then if we were to break that up again, we really wouldn't be able to tell. So it's going to be somewhere around there. So the -0.3 repeater is going to be right there. Okay, let's have a look at B. So this time we have fractions, not decimals. So let's start by drawing our number line. Nice long one. And on the last question, we had 10 spaces in between because we were working with decimals. This time, we're going to want to figure out what the lowest common denominator is. So in this case, you guys can probably see the lowest common denominator be 4. So that's how many spaces we want in between this time. And again, we want to figure out where to start, where to finish. So -1/2 is our least, so we're going to start at -1. And our greatest is going to be 7/4, which is the same as 1 3/4. So that means we're going to have that's going to be between 1 and 2. So we're going to, again, be going between -1 and +2. So there's my -1. And this time we want 4 spaces. So I'm going to use full centimeters this time, just because it'll fit. So 1, 2, 3. There's 4 spaces, gets me to 0. 1, 2, 3. 4 spaces gets me to 1. And 1, 2, 3. 4 spaces gets me to 2. Okay. First one's 1/4, so that's 1 out of the 4 spaces is going to be right there. -1/2. There's 2 ways to think about this. Obviously, -1/2 is going to be halfway between 0 and -1, so it's going to be here. Or we can think about it as -2/4. Right, we can multiply top and bottom by 2 the same way we would if we were adding fractions. Okay, next one, 3/4. That's going to be 3 of the 4 spaces between 0 and 1. So that's going to be here. 7/4, we already decided was 1 3/4, so that's going to be 1 and then 3 of the 4. So there's 7/4 there. And the last one, 3/2. That's the same as 1/2. And if we want to, we can even think about that as 1 and 2/4. So 1/2 is probably the easiest way to think about it. That's going to be halfway between 1 and 2 is right there. So there's our 3/2. Okay, and we've just got one more of these. Okay, so first let's draw our line in. And now we need to figure out what our least number is going to be and what our greatest number is going to be. So our least number looks like it's -1 1/3 or -5/6. Either way, both of those are going to be between -2 and -1. So we're going to start with -2. And I think -1/6 is our greatest number. Oh, we've also got -4/3. But again, that's between -2 and -1. And then we've got -1/6 is between 0 and -1. So we basically need to go between -2 and 0. And our lowest common denominator is going to be 6, so we want 6 spaces. And again, I'm going to do full centimeters in between. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to get me to -1. That's going to get me to 0. There we go. Okay, -4/3. Okay, that's going to be the same as -1 1/3. And that's the same as -1 and 2/6. So there's -1, and that's 2 of the 6. So that's where my -4/3 is going to be, at -1 2/6. Okay, -1/6, that one's easy, right there. -1/6 is there. -3/2, that's going to be the same as -1 1/2, And that's good enough for me to figure out where that is, because that's halfway between -1 and -2. So there's -3 over 2 there. If you wanted to, you could think about it as 3 over 6, -3 over 6. Okay, -5 over 6, that's going to be 5 of the 6 spaces between 0 and -1. And last one, -1 and 1/3 is the same as -1 and 2 over 6, which is in the exact same spot as -3 over 2. So I guess this guy's right here as well. Oh, you know what? I wrote this down wrong. That's supposed to be -1 and 2/3, which means that's going to make that -1 and 4/3, which means it's going to be right here. Sorry about that. So -1 and 2/3. Yeah, I didn't think any of them were the same. Okay. So that's it for number lines. Notice this isn't middle school. When you guys are doing fractions, for example, out of 6, your number line should have 6 spaces between 0 and -1. And not just have 10 and guess it where it's going to go approximately. That doesn't cut it anymore. Okay, here we go. Example 2. The greater than, less than signs, the inequalities, the Pac-Mans, the birds, the alligators. And you guys hopefully remember from grade 2 or whenever you learned this, the greedy bird eats the greater number, or whatever you call it. Okay, so in this case we've got 5 and 9, so the greedy bird's going to want to eat the 9. Next one, 5 and -9. Well, if we're talking about animals eating things, negative numbers would be barfing. So this guy's definitely going to want to eat a 5 instead of barf up 9. Okay, C, these are both barfing, but our guy is going to want to barf less. So he's going to want to barf 5 instead of barf 9. Okay, oh good, now we're back to regular numbers. We can stop talking about barfing. Here we've got 3 slices of 4-slice pizza and 5 slices of 4-slice pizza. Because these are both 4-slice pizzas, this one's going to be greater. It's going to be more pizza. Okay, E. E's harder to tell. E, we've got 4 slices of 5-slice pizza or 3 slices of 4-slice pizza. The slices are different sizes. What can we do about that? Well, we can make the slices the same as we would if we were going to add the fractions. We can get a common denominator. So 4 over 5 is the same as 16 over 20, and 3 over 4 is the same as 15 over 20. So 4 over 5 is a little bit greater. The other way you could think about this is you could think about the fact that these are both pizzas with 1 slice missing. This pizza was cut into 5 slices, this pizza was cut into 4 slices, which means the slices in this pizza are bigger, which means that this one's going to be missing more than the other one, which means this number would be greater. So just another way to think about it. Okay, and F, we've got -2.3, and you remember this one's -2.3333 forever. Okay, well this guy is going to be more negativer, which means this guy is going to be greater. There we go. Okay, you should be able to do your assignment now.